The three warships appeared in New Sol's sky like black thunderclouds. They were massive, each one 10 times larger than the colony's biggest building. Their dark hulls blocked out the morning sun. Commodore Zethvar stood on the bridge of O, his flagship, looking down at the human settlement through his viewing screen. The buildings looked like toys from this height. Tiny roads connected small houses and farms. It looked peaceful and harmless. "This is what the Council fears?" he asked his second officer. "These creatures could not threaten a child." "The orders are clear, Commodore," the officer replied. "Make an example of them. Show the galaxy that humans are weak." Zethvar nodded. His species, the hegemony, had ruled this part of space for 300 years. They kept order by showing strength. Any species that stepped out of line faced swift punishment. "Open a channel to the surface," he ordered. Down in the colony, every screen and speaker came alive with Zethvar's voice. His image appeared in homes, schools, and workshops. He was tall and pale, with eyes like black stones. "Humans of New Sol Colony," he announced. "I am Commodore Zethvar of the Hegemony Fleet. Your species has become troublesome. Today we will demonstrate the price of human arrogance." Taeho stood in the colony's command center, watching the broadcast with his core team. Yunji, Dongwu, Ji-Wan, and Captain Subin surrounded him. "You have 7 minutes to surrender," Zethvar continued. "After that, we will cleanse your pathetic outpost from existence. Let this be a lesson to every human who thinks they belong among the stars." The transmission ended. Across the colony, people looked up at the sky with fear and anger. 7 minutes, Ji-Wan whispered. Taeho looked at his friends. "Can we do this?" Captain Subin stepped forward. She was 60 years old, but her eyes were sharp as steel. "Governor, I spent 30 years in Earth defense. I know military tactics. These hegemony commanders are arrogant. They expect us to panic and beg." "Will that work?" Taeho asked. "No," Subin said firmly. "Begging will not save us. But they have made one big mistake." "What mistake?" "They gave us 7 minutes to get ready." Dongwu was already moving toward his control panel. "I am activating Harvest Protocol," he announced. Across the colony, hidden systems came online. The old terraforming stations began to hum with new power. Equipment that had seemed broken for years suddenly worked perfectly. Dr. Yunji spoke into her communicator. "All agricultural teams begin atmospheric seeding, full dispersal pattern." In the crop fields, modified plants began releasing clouds of pollen and oxygen into the air. The atmosphere around the colony started to shimmer and thicken. "What is happening?" Taeho asked. "Defense grid activation," Dongwu explained, his fingers flying over controls. "Every machine in this colony can do more than one job. The farming equipment, the weather stations, the mining tools. We have been preparing for this day for 15 years. G1 established contact with the Hegemony Fleet." "Commodore, please wait," she said, her voice shaking. "We are just farmers. We need time to evacuate the children." "You have 4 minutes remaining," Zethvar replied coldly. But G1 was not really asking for mercy. She was buying time and gathering information about their attackers. Her equipment was scanning the enemy ships, finding their weaknesses. Engineer Mayong-Su, Dongwu's young assistant, ran into the command center. "Magnetic field generators are online," he reported. "Orbital platforms are ready." "Orbital platforms?" Taeho asked in surprise. "What orbital platforms?" "The terraforming satellites," Dongwu said with a grin. "They have been doing more than controlling weather for the past 5 years." Around the planet, old weather satellites revealed their true purpose. Hidden weapon systems emerged from their shells. Mining equipment that had been drifting in orbit suddenly moved into defensive positions. Captain Subin took control of the mining drones. There were hundreds of them, small automated ships designed to break apart asteroids. But asteroids were not the only things they could break. "All teams report ready," Yunji announced. Taeho looked around the command center. Every screen showed different parts of the colony's hidden defenses. Teachers coordinated communication networks. Farmers operated atmospheric controls. Mechanics managed weapon systems that had been disguised as farming tools. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked. "Since the day we arrived," Captain Subin said. "We knew someday someone would try to destroy us. Humans always have enemies among the stars." 2 minutes remaining, G1 announced. Above them, Commodore Zethvar studied the human colony through his sensors. Everything looked normal. A few small ships moved around the planet, but they seemed to be civilian vessels trying to escape. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "I am detecting some unusual atmospheric readings." "What kind of readings?" "Increased oxygen levels. Some kind of particles in the air." Zethvar dismissed it. "Probably their primitive terraforming systems malfunctioning. Humans never could maintain proper equipment." He had no idea that the malfunction was actually Dr. Yunji's 15 years of agricultural research. The particles in the air were designed to scatter energy weapons and confuse targeting systems. 1 minute, G1 called out. In homes across the colony, families gathered in their basements and community shelters. But they were not hiding in fear. Parents showed children how to operate backup communication systems. Teenagers monitored sensor networks. Even the youngest colonists had jobs to do. Mrs. So-Young Park, the school teacher, coordinated a group of 12-year-olds who were tracking the enemy ship's movements. "Remember what we practiced," she told them. "Watch the patterns and report everything." The children nodded seriously. This was not a game, but they had been training for years without knowing it. Their educational computer exercises had actually been preparation for defending their home. 30 seconds, G1 announced. Dongwu's hand hovered over the final activation switch. "Governor, once we start this, there is no going back. The galaxy will know that humans are not helpless." Taeho looked around at his people. These farmers and teachers and mechanics had built something incredible. They had turned their entire world into a weapon, not through violence but through intelligence and preparation. "Do it," he said. 10 seconds. G1 counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Above them, Commodore Zethvar raised his hand to give the order to fire. But before he could speak, his ship's alarms began screaming. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Sir, we are being targeted. Multiple contacts all around us." "Impossible. There are no military vessels in this system." On his viewing screen, space around the 3 hegemony ships suddenly filled with small, fast-moving objects. Mining drones swarmed toward them like angry insects. "Where did they come from?" Zethvar shouted. His sensors officer looked confused. "Sir, they appear to be mining equipment." In the command center below, Captain Subin smiled grimly as she guided her drone swarms toward their targets. Time to show these aliens what human miners can do. The battle for New Sol Colony was about to begin, and the hegemony fleet was about to learn that the galaxy's weakest human colony was anything but weak. The morning sun rose over New Sol Colony like it had every day for the past 20 years. Taeho Kim stood at his office window, watching the farmers walk to their fields. Their backs were bent with worry, not age. The crops were failing again. "Governor, Kim?" his assistant called from the doorway. "The council meeting is starting." Taeho sighed. He hated these Galactic Council video calls. Today would be another day of listening to alien species talk about humans like they were children playing dress up. The hologram flickered to life in his office. 12 different alien species sat around a virtual table. At the head sat Ambassador Veltar, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms. His species, the hegemony, controlled most of this part of the galaxy. "Today we discuss the human problem," Veltar said, his voice cold. "These soft creatures spread across our space like a disease. They build their little farms and call themselves colonists." Taeho wanted to speak, but he knew better. Human colonies had no real voice in the council. "Take New Sol Colony," another alien added. 50,000 humans on a useless rock. They cannot even grow food properly. They beg for supplies every month. The other species laughed. Taeho felt his face burn with shame, but he stayed quiet. "Perhaps we should clean up these weak settlements," Veltar suggested. Show the galaxy that humans do not belong among the stars. The meeting ended with more laughter. Taeho turned off the hologram and sat in silence. Outside, he could see Dr. Yoonji Park walking between the crop fields. She held a tablet and took notes as she examined each plant. Yoonji had been the colony's head scientist for 15 years. She was small and quiet, but she understood the planet better than anyone. The other colonists trusted her completely. Taeho walked outside to meet her. The air smelled of earth and growing things, but something felt different today. "How are the crops?" he asked. Yoonji looked up from her tablet. Her dark eyes were thoughtful. "They are changing," she said simply. "Changing? How? The roots are growing deeper, much deeper than they should. And the leaves." She picked up a sample. "They are producing different chemicals." Taeho did not understand. "Is that bad?" "I am not sure yet," Yoonji said. "But the plants are adapting to something. They are getting ready for something." Before Taeho could ask more questions, a loud bang came from the power station. They both turned to see Chief Engineer Dongwoo Lee running toward them. Dongwoo was a big man with thick hands covered in oil stains. He had kept the colony's old machines running for 2 decades with nothing but spare parts and stubbornness. "Governor, the main generator is making that noise again," he called out. "Can you fix it?" Taeho asked. Dongwoo grinned. "I always fix it, but I need to show you something. Both of you." They followed him to the power station. Inside, the old terraforming equipment hummed and clicked. The machines were supposed to control the planet's weather, but they were 40 years old and barely worked. "Watch this," Dongwoo said. He pulled a lever and the machine suddenly ran smoothly. The noise stopped completely. "How did you do that?" Taeho asked. "I have been working on improvements," Dongwoo said. His voice was careful, like he was keeping a secret. "Small changes. Nothing anyone would notice from the outside." Yoonji stepped closer to the machines. "These modifications, what do they actually do?" Dongwoo looked around to make sure no one else could hear. "They still control weather, but now they can do other things too. Much more powerful things." Taeho felt something cold in his stomach. "What kind of things?" "Emergency things," Dongwoo said. "Things we might need if we ever have to protect ourselves." Before anyone could ask more questions, a young voice called from outside. "Governor Kim! Governor Kim!" They rushed outside to find Ji-won Choi running from the communications building. She was barely 25 and had been monitoring deep space signals for 3 years. "I am getting strange readings," she said, breathing hard. "Big ships moving in the outer system? Supply ships?" Taeho hoped. Ji-won shook her head. "No, these are different, much bigger, and they are not broadcasting friendly signals." Taeho looked at his 3 closest friends, Yoonji with her mysterious crops, Dongwoo with his secret machines, and Ji-won with her worried eyes. "How long until they reach us?" he asked. 6 hours, maybe 7, Ji-won said. That evening, the colony held its monthly community meeting in the main hall. 500 colonists crowded into the space. They were farmers, teachers, mechanics, and shopkeepers. Most of them had been born on Earth but came to New Seoul looking for a better life. Taeho stood before them and explained what they knew. Unknown ships were coming. The Galactic Council would not help them. They were alone. "What do we do?" asked Mrs. So-young Park, the schoolteacher. Taeho looked at his people. He expected to see fear, but instead he saw something else. Determination. These people had survived 20 years on a difficult planet. They had built homes, raised children, and created a community from nothing. "We do what we always do," said old Mr. Byom-seok Han from the back. "We take care of each other." The crowd murmured agreement. These people had faced drought, equipment failures, and years of neglect from Earth. They had never given up. "I have an idea," Dr. Yoonji said quietly. Everyone turned to listen. "We have protocols, emergency protocols, things we prepared but hoped we would never need." Dongwoo nodded slowly. "The Harvest Protocol." "What is the Harvest Protocol?" Taeho asked. Yunji and Dongwoo looked at each other. Something we have been working on for years, Yunji said. All of us. Teachers, farmers, mechanics, everyone. Working on what? Staying alive, Dongwoo said simply. The meeting continued late into the night. Taeho learned that his colonists had been preparing for trouble for years, not by building weapons or calling for help, but by making their tools and machines work better. By learning every part of their world. The teachers had trained the children to use the communication systems. The farmers had modified their equipment to do double duty. The mechanics had improved everything they touched. We are not soldiers, said Captain Subin Han, an old woman who had served in Earth's military before retirement. But we are not helpless either. As the colonists filed out to return to their homes, Taeho felt something he had not felt in years. Pride. These people were not the weak farmers the galaxy thought they were. Ji-Wan approached him with her latest readings. Governor, the ships will be here in 4 hours. They are definitely military vessels. Can you contact them? I have been trying. They are not answering. Taeho nodded. He walked outside and looked up at the stars. Somewhere among them, ships, full of aliens, were coming to destroy everything his people had built. But as he looked around the colony, he saw lights in windows and people moving with purpose. Dongwoo was making final adjustments to his machines. Yunji was checking her crop modifications one last time. Subin was reviewing emergency procedures with the younger colonists. New Sol Colony might be small and poor, but it was home to 50,000 humans who refused to give up. They had turned a difficult planet into a place where children could grow up safely. They had created something worth defending. The aliens coming to attack them expected to find weak farmers begging for mercy. Instead, they were going to find people who had spent 20 years learning how to survive. Taeho smiled for the first time in months. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humans. Something about what happened when you threatened their families and their homes. The countdown to morning had begun. The first mining drone hit the hegemony flagship like a bullet made of pure determination. The small craft, normally used to crack open asteroids, punched straight through the warship's outer armor. Commodore Zethvar stumbled as his ship shook. "Report!" he shouted. "Hull breach on Deck 7, his officer called out. "How is this possible? Those are civilian mining tools." "Civilian tools that cut through solid rock every day," Captain Subin said quietly in the colony command center. She guided another wave of drones toward the enemy ships. The hegemony had never faced anything like this. Their ships were designed to fight other military vessels in traditional space battles. They were not prepared for hundreds of small, fast mining drones that could slice through metal like butter. Dr. Yunji activated the next phase of their defense. Across the colony, the modified crops released their final surprise into the atmosphere. Clouds of special pollen mixed with oxygen created a shimmering barrier around the planet. "Sir, our targeting systems are malfunctioning," reported the hegemony weapons officer. "What do you mean, malfunctioning?" "I cannot get a clear lock on anything. The atmosphere is interfering with our sensors." Zethvar watched in growing panic as his weapons fired wild shots that missed their targets completely. The energy beams scattered and weakened as they passed through Dr. Yunji's atmospheric modifications. Meanwhile, Engineer Myung-Soo activated the planetary magnetic field generators. The machines had been built to control New Sol's weather patterns, but Dongwoo had made some creative modifications over the years. "Magnetic pulse in 3, 2, 1, Myung-Soo announced. The pulse hit the hegemony ships like an invisible hammer. Their navigation systems went crazy. Warning lights flashed across their control panels. "We are losing helm control," the hegemony pilot reported in panic. "How are they doing this?" Zethvar demanded. "They are supposed to be simple farmers." In the colony, Taeho watched in amazement as his people coordinated their defense. Every person had a role to play. The baker, Mr. Jin Ho-yoon, operated a communications relay from his shop. The librarian, Ms. Yoon-jung Kim, managed sensor data from the colony's information center. "Governor," Ji-Wan called out, "I am detecting massive system failures on all 3 enemy ships." "What kind of failures?" Navigation, weapons, communications. They are basically flying blind. Captain Subin pressed her advantage. Her mining drones swarmed around the disabled hegemony vessels like wolves surrounding prey. Each drone carried cutting tools designed to slice through the hardest materials in space. But Subin was not trying to kill the alien crews. She was targeting their weapons and engines with surgical precision. Every cut disabled another system without causing unnecessary deaths. "This is impossible," Zethvar whispered as he watched his mighty fleet being taken apart by mining equipment. His second ship tried to retreat, but engineer Dongwu had prepared for that too. Hidden orbital platforms, disguised as old terraforming, satellites came alive around the planet. "Tractor beams active," Dongwu reported. "They are not going anywhere." The orbital platforms locked onto the fleeing hegemony ship and pulled it back toward the planet. What Zethvar did not know was that these tractor beams were actually modified asteroid mining equipment. New Sol's miners had been using similar technology to move space rocks for 20 years. "Sir, we are caught in some kind of gravitational field," the second ship's captain reported over the radio. "Break free," Zethvar ordered. "We cannot. Our engines are not responding." That was when the third phase of the colony's defense began. Dr. Yunji had spent 15 years studying New Sol's unique atmospheric properties. She had discovered that the planet's air could be modified to conduct electricity in very specific ways. "Atmospheric lightning ready," she reported. With the push of a button, the shimmering pollen clouds around New Sol became a massive electrical conductor. Natural lightning from the planet's storms was channeled and directed at the hegemony ships with pinpoint accuracy. The first bolt hit Zethvar's flagship directly in its main power core. Every light on the bridge went out. "Emergency power," he shouted in the darkness. "Sir, all power systems are down," his engineer reported. "That lightning strike somehow drained our entire energy grid." The second and third ships suffered the same fate. In less than 5 minutes, the mighty hegemony fleet had been reduced to 3 dark, powerless hulks drifting helplessly in space. In the colony command center, the defense teams cheered, but their celebration was quiet and controlled. These people were professionals who had done exactly what they trained for. "Damage report," Taeho asked. "Minor hull breaches on platforms 7 and 12, Myung-soo reported. "No casualties. All systems functioning normally." "What about the enemy?" Jiwon scanned the disabled hegemony ships. "All 3 vessels are dead in space. Life support is functioning, so their crews are alive. But they have no weapons, no engines, and no communications." Taeho looked around at his team. Yunji was already analyzing samples from the atmospheric battle. Dongwu was making sure all their hidden systems were properly concealed again. Subin was organizing the mining drones back into their normal work patterns. "How long did that take?" he asked. Jiwon checked her chronometer. 6 minutes and 43 seconds. "Less than 7 minutes, Taeho said with amazement. "Captain," Subin nodded. "We had 17 seconds to spare." The true genius of their defense was now clear. The colonists had not built military weapons. Instead, they had modified their everyday tools to serve double purposes. Mining drones could cut asteroids or enemy ships. Weather control systems could create defensive screens or guide lightning strikes. Agricultural equipment could feed families or protect them. "Sir," Jiwon interrupted, "I am receiving emergency signals from the hegemony ships. They are requesting rescue assistance." Taeho smiled. "Open a channel." The main screen showed Commodore Zethvar's bridge, lit only by emergency lighting. The arrogant alien commander looked shocked and confused. "Commodore," Taeho said politely, "do you need help?" How did you do this?" Zethvar whispered. "Our intelligence said you were defenseless farmers." "We are farmers," Taeho replied. "We grow food, raise families, and take care of our community. But we also protect what we have built. This is impossible. No civilian colony has technology like this." Dr. Yunji stepped into view. "We do not have military technology, Commodore. We have better technology. Tools that serve life instead of destroying it." Zethvar stared at the small human woman who had turned his fleet into scrap metal. What are you? I am a farmer who studies plants, Yunji said simply. This is my home. You threatened it. The implications were staggering. If New Sol Colony, supposedly the weakest human settlement, could do this, what could the stronger colonies do? What about Earth itself? Commodore, Tejo continued, we will send rescue ships to help your crews. Your people will be treated with respect and returned safely to hegemony space. Why would you help us? We came to destroy you. Because that is what humans do, Tejo said. We take care of people, even people who try to hurt us. The transmission ended. Across the colony, the hidden defenses powered down and returned to their normal functions. The terraforming stations went back to controlling weather. The orbital platforms resumed their disguise as old satellites. The mining drones returned to their asteroid fields. To any outside observer, New Sol looked exactly like it had before the battle, a small, struggling agricultural colony trying to survive on a difficult planet. But the galaxy would never see it the same way again. In his private office, Tejo sat down heavily in his chair. His hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline. In less than 7 minutes, his people had defeated one of the most powerful fleets in known space, and they had done it while staying true to who they were. Not as warriors, but as protectors, not through violence but through intelligence and preparation. The harvest protocol had worked exactly as designed. New Sol Colony had reaped what it had sown, safety for their families and respect from their enemies. The rescue operation began immediately. Captain Subin launched her mining ships toward the disabled hegemony vessels, but this time they carried medical supplies and repair equipment instead of weapons. This is insane, Commodore Zethvar muttered as he watched human rescue ships dock with his flagship. They should be executing us, not saving us. His first officer, a younger hegemony male named Kethrun, stood beside him in the dark bridge. Sir, our battle records are being transmitted automatically to Hegemony Command. They will have seen everything. Zethvar felt ice in his stomach. His superiors would not believe that 3 warships had been defeated by farming equipment. They would assume he was lying to cover up his own incompetence. The airlock opened and 3 humans floated inside. They moved carefully in the zero gravity, carrying emergency power cells and medical kits. I am Dr. Minho Seo, the lead human said. We are here to help. Why? Zethvar demanded. We came to kill you. Dr. Seo was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and gentle hands. Because you need help, he said simply. The doctor and his team worked quickly to restore life support to the hegemony ship. They showed no fear, even though they were surrounded by alien warriors who had planned to destroy their home. Your people are very strange, Kethrun observed. How so? Dr. Seo asked as he connected a power cell to the ship's emergency systems. You could have killed us easily. Instead, you help us. Dr. Seo paused in his work. Killing you would not protect our families. It would just create more enemies. Helping you might create understanding. Within 2 hours, all 3 hegemony ships had their life support restored. The human rescue teams provided food, medical care, and temporary repairs to navigation systems. But the most important repair was happening in the communication systems. G1 had made sure that the hegemony fleet's automatic battle recorders were working perfectly. Governor, she reported back to the colony, the entire battle has been transmitted to Hegemony Command. Every detail. Tejo nodded. That had been part of the plan. The galaxy needed to see what happened when humans were threatened. The recordings spread across space faster than the rescue ships could travel. Within hours, every major species in the galaxy was watching footage of the battle. The images were unbelievable. Tiny mining drones slicing through massive warships, lightning guided by atmospheric modifications, orbital platforms that looked like junk but fought like precision weapons. Most shocking of all was the speed. The mighty hegemony fleet had been completely defeated in less than 7 minutes by farmers using mining equipment. On the hegemony homeworld, Supreme Commander Velkoth watched the recordings in his war room. Around him, his top military advisors sat in stunned silence. "How many of these human colonies are there?" he asked quietly. 412 known settlements, his intelligence officer reported. And this was their weakest? According to our information, yes, sir. New Sol Colony was rated as having minimal strategic value and no military capability. Velkoth studied the tactical display. If the humans' weakest colony could do this, what could their stronger settlements do? What about Earth itself? "Send orders to all fleet commanders," he said finally. "Human colonies are now classified as restricted targets. No offensive operations without direct approval from this command." The word spread quickly. Within days, alien raids on human settlements stopped completely. No species wanted to risk facing another New Sol surprise, but the real change was happening in the human colonies themselves. News of New Sol's victory reached every human settlement in space. Colony governors called emergency meetings. Engineers examined their own equipment with new eyes. "Can we do what New Sol did?" asked Governor Chen Li of Titan Station, humanity's largest orbital colony. Her chief engineer, Dr. Sarah Kim, nodded slowly. "Our mining operation is 3 times larger than theirs. Our manufacturing capabilities are more advanced. If they could improvise those defenses, we could build something even better." Similar conversations were happening on every human world. Farmers looked at their tractors and wondered what else they could do. Miners examined their drilling equipment with tactical interest. Even school teachers began thinking about how their communication networks could serve double purposes. Back on New Sol, life was slowly returning to normal. The hegemony ships had been repaired enough to limp home. Commodore Zethvar had left, with a new understanding of human capabilities and a personal message from Governor Kim. "Tell your leaders that we want peace," Taiho had said, "but also tell them that every human colony is protected by people who will not surrender their homes." Dr. Yunji was back in her fields, tending to crops that had served as both food and weapons. The plants were already returning to their normal growing patterns, but she kept detailed records of their defensive capabilities. "Will we need to do this again?" asked her assistant, a young farmer named Hoseok Park. "Maybe," Yunji said. "But next time, we will be even more prepared." Engineer Dongwu was in his workshop, making final adjustments to equipment that had performed perfectly under pressure. His modifications would be shared with other human colonies through carefully coded technical manuals. "The beautiful thing," he told his apprentice Myung-soo, "is that everything we built makes our lives better every day. The same systems that defended us also help us grow food, control weather, and mine resources more efficiently." Captain Subin was training a new generation of pilots. Young colonists who had watched the battle were eager to learn how to operate the mining drones. "Remember," she told them, "these are tools, not weapons. They become weapons only when someone threatens our families." The most important changes were happening in the schools. Mrs. So Young Park was developing new curriculum that would teach children practical skills they might someday need. "We are not training soldiers," she explained to concerned parents. "We are teaching our children to be capable citizens who can protect their community if necessary." The children themselves were fascinated by what they had witnessed. 12-year-old Sujin Lee raised her hand in class. "Mrs. Park, are we the strongest human colony now?" The teacher smiled. "No, Sujin. We are still just farmers and miners and shopkeepers. But we proved something important." "What did we prove?" "That humans do not need to be the biggest or strongest to protect what they love. We just need to be smart and work together." 3 months after the battle, New Sol received its first official diplomatic visit. A delegation from the Galactic Council arrived to reassess human colonial capabilities. The delegation was led by Ambassador Theklar, a species known for their analytical minds and diplomatic skills. Unlike the arrogant hegemony, Theklar's people valued intelligence and innovation. "Governor Kim," the ambassador said as they met, in the colony's simple conference room, "my government wishes to establish formal diplomatic relations with human colonies." "We would welcome that," Taeho replied. We are also interested in discussing technology exchanges. Your defensive innovations could benefit many species. Tejo smiled. Ambassador, we did not create new technology. We just used old technology in creative ways. That may be the most valuable innovation of all, Teklar observed. The ability to see new possibilities in existing tools. The meeting established New Sol Colony as humanity's unofficial diplomatic center. Other species began sending representatives to learn from the farmer warriors who had changed galactic politics in 7 minutes, but the colonists remained humble. They knew they had won through preparation and teamwork, not superior firepower. Their victory had come not from being better warriors, but from being better humans. As Tejo often told visitors, we did not defeat the hegemony fleet. We simply showed them that attacking peaceful people has consequences. The galaxy was learning to respect human ingenuity, and human colonies everywhere were learning to respect themselves. 6 months after the battle, New Sol Colony looked almost exactly the same as before. The same small houses lined the quiet streets. The same fields stretched toward the horizon, filled with healthy crops. The same old machines hummed in the power station. But everything had changed. Governor Tejo stood at his office window watching the morning routine. Farmers walked to their fields as always, but now they moved with confidence instead of worry. Supply ships arrived regularly, bringing not just necessities but gifts and trade offers from across human space. Governor, Jiwan called from her communication station. We have another interview request, this time from the Altarian News Network. Tejo sighed. The interview requests never stopped. Every major news organization in the galaxy wanted to speak with the humans who had defeated a hegemony fleet using farming equipment. What do they want to know? The same thing everyone asks. How? Did we do it? Tejo had given this answer dozens of times, but he never got tired of it. Tell them what we always tell them. We are farmers and miners and teachers. When someone threatened our home, we protected it using the tools we had. The truth was both simpler and more complex than most aliens could understand. New Sol's victory had not come from secret weapons or military genius. It had come from 20 years of people working together to build something worth defending. Dr. Yunji entered the office, carrying her usual tablet full of crop data. But these days, her research attracted attention from agricultural scientists across the galaxy. How are the plants today? Tejo asked. Growing beautifully, she replied. And I received another message from the Centauri Agricultural Institute. They want to study our atmospheric modification techniques. For farming or defense, Yunji smiled. Both. The same methods that helped us defend the colony also increased our crop yields by 30%. When plants adapt to protect themselves, they grow stronger in every way. That was the real secret of New Sol's success. Every defensive innovation had made their daily lives better. The modified terraforming stations controlled weather more effectively. The enhanced communication systems helped coordinate farming operations. The improved mining drones extracted resources more efficiently. Engineer Dongwu appeared in the doorway, his hands dirty from working on machinery. These days, he spent half his time maintaining their regular equipment and half his time consulting with other colonies about dual-purpose engineering. Governor, the delegation from New Tokyo Colony is here for their tour, he announced. Tejo nodded. The tours had become routine. Colony governors, military advisors, and engineers came from across human space to learn how New Sol had defended itself. They always left with detailed technical manuals and new ideas for improving their own settlements. What do they want to see first? Tejo asked. The usual. Mining operations, atmospheric processors, and the orbital platforms. The orbital platforms were still everyone's favorite. What looked like ancient, barely functional weather satellites had turned out to be sophisticated defensive systems. The disguise was so perfect that even the colonists had not known about the hidden capabilities until the day of the battle. Are we ready for the next phase? Tejo asked. Dongwu grinned. Phase 2, construction begins next month. By this time, next year our defensive capabilities will be twice as strong, and our farming productivity will be triple. That was the new Sol way. Every improvement served multiple purposes. Better defenses meant better agriculture. Stronger community networks meant both security and prosperity. Captain Subin walked in, followed by a group of young colonists in pilot training uniforms. At 70 years old, she had become the colony's official defense coordinator and mining operations director. "Governor, the new pilot class is ready for certification," she reported. The young people behind her stood, proudly. They had learned to operate mining drones, coordinate atmospheric modifications, and manage orbital platforms. To outside observers, they looked like civilian workers. But they were also the colony's defense force. "How many certified pilots do we have now?" Tejo asked. 230, Subin replied. "Every adult colonist and most of the teenagers can operate at least one defensive system." This was another key to New Sol's success. Everyone had learned multiple skills. Teachers could coordinate communication networks. Farmers could operate atmospheric processors. Shop owners could manage sensor arrays. In an emergency, the entire colony became a unified defense force. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Jiwan checked her console and looked up with interest. "Governor, we are receiving a transmission from Earth. Priority diplomatic channel." "Earth?" Tejo was surprised. The home planet rarely contacted individual colonies directly. The main screen activated, showing a middle-aged woman in an official Earth government uniform. Behind her was the skyline of Geneva, where Earth's colonial administration was headquartered. "Governor Kim, I am Director Sandra Chen of the Colonial Defense Authority. Congratulations on your remarkable achievement." "Thank you, Director. How can we help you?" "Actually, Governor, we would like to help you. The Earth government has decided to establish a new colonial defense initiative. We want New Sol to be our prototype for the entire program." Tejo felt a moment of concern. "What kind of program?" "Not military, Governor. Educational. We want to teach every human colony how to adapt their civilian infrastructure for defensive purposes. Just like you did." Dr. Yunji stepped forward. "Director Chen, our methods work because they grew naturally from our community's needs. They cannot simply be copied and installed somewhere else." "Exactly right, Dr. Park. That is why we need teachers, not weapons. We want to send teams from New Sol to other colonies, not to build defenses, but to help each community develop their own solutions." This was an opportunity Tejo had not expected. New Sol could help protect other human settlements while sharing the knowledge they had gained. "What would this involve?" he asked. "Technical exchanges, training programs, and advisory missions. Each colony would develop defenses based on their own resources and capabilities. A mining colony would have different solutions than a research station or agricultural world." Captain Subin nodded approvingly. "That makes sense. Cookie cutter. Defenses would be vulnerable to anyone who figured out the pattern. The program would be voluntary," Director Chen continued. "Any colony that wants to participate can request a consultation team. You would assess their needs and help them develop appropriate responses." Tejo looked around at his team. These people had created something remarkable, not through violence but through intelligence and cooperation. Now they could help others do the same. "We accept," he said, "but with conditions." "What conditions?" "First, every solution must improve daily life, not just provide defense. Second, no colony will be forced to participate. Third, we share everything freely with any human settlement that asks." Director Chen smiled. "Governor, those conditions are exactly what we hoped you would say." After the transmission ended, the leadership team sat in comfortable silence. They had come so far from the day when New Sol was dismissed as the galaxy's weakest human colony. "So we become teachers," Dr. Yunji mused. "We were always teachers," Tejo replied. "We just taught a very loud lesson to the hegemony fleet." Engineer Myung-Soo, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "Governor, there is something else. The technical data from our battle has been analyzed by colonies across human space. 3 settlements have already reported successful defensive tests using modified versions of our systems." "Which colonies?" Kepler Station used mining drones to drive off pirates last month. New Hokkaido turned their fishing fleet into a patrol squadron. And Armstrong Base created atmospheric defenses using their greenhouse systems. The ripple effects were spreading faster than anyone had expected. Human colonies everywhere were discovering that their everyday tools could become defensive systems when guided by intelligence and cooperation. Are they giving credit to New Sol? Captain Subin asked with amusement. Some are, but most are saying they developed the techniques independently, which is probably true. We just proved it could be done. Tejo laughed. That is perfect. Let every colony think they invented it themselves. Pride makes better defenses than fear. As the team dispersed to return to their daily duties, Tejo remained at his window. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the fields where Dr. Yunji's modified crops grew strong and healthy. 7 minutes had changed everything, not just for New Sol, but for every human colony in the galaxy. The lesson had been simple. Ordinary people with ordinary tools could accomplish extraordinary things when they worked together to protect what they loved. The galaxy had learned to respect human ingenuity. More importantly, humans had learned to respect themselves. New Sol Colony was no longer the forgotten outpost at the edge of nowhere. It had become the symbol of what humanity could achieve among the stars. 1 year after the 7-minute battle, the galaxy had settled into a new reality. Human colonies were no longer seen as easy targets. Instead, they had become centers of innovation and trade that other species actively sought to work with. Governor, Tejo walked through New Sol's expanded market district, watching alien traders negotiate with human farmers. Vendors sold everything from Dr. Yunji's enhanced crop varieties to engineer Dong Wu's dual-purpose machinery designs. Governor Kim called out Ambassador Theklar, the diplomatic representative who had become a regular visitor. I have news from the Galactic Council. They sat at a small cafe run by Mrs. Hai Jin Song, who served excellent coffee and monitored long-range communications as a side job. The integration of multiple functions had become a New Sol specialty. What news, Ambassador? The Council has officially recognized the human colonial defense doctrine as a legitimate defensive strategy. 3 more species have requested permission to study your methods. Tejo sipped his coffee thoughtfully. The human colonial defense doctrine was really just a fancy name for use what you have intelligently. But if it helped protect people, he was happy to let diplomats call it whatever they wanted. Which species are interested? The Vrex Mining Consortium, the Altarian Agricultural Federation, and surprisingly, a faction within the hegemony itself. The hegemony wants to learn from us? Tejo was genuinely surprised. Not the military leadership, but their civilian colonies. It seems some hegemony settlements face the same challenges you did. Limited resources, old equipment, and hostile neighbors. Dr. Yunji approached their table, tablet in hand as always. She had become something of a celebrity among agricultural scientists, but she still preferred working in the fields to giving speeches. Tejo, we just received confirmation from the New Britannia colony. Their atmospheric modifications worked perfectly during yesterday's storm season. Crop damage was reduced by 70% compared to last year. Any defensive applications? Not yet, but they are prepared if needed. The same systems that protect crops from storms can protect settlements from energy weapon bombardment. This was the pattern that had emerged across human space. Each colony developed defensive capabilities based on their specific needs and resources. Ocean worlds used their aquaculture systems. Desert planets modified their water recycling technology. Space stations turned their construction equipment into mobile defense platforms. Captain Subin joined them, followed by 2 young people Tejo did not recognize. Governor, I would like you to meet our newest consulting team, she announced. Lieutenant Jamin Park from the New California colony, and Specialist Yunbi Lee from Titan Station. The young officers wore simple civilian clothes, but their bearing suggested military training. They represented the new generation of human colonists, people who understood both civilian operations and defensive tactics. We have studied your battle records extensively, Governor Kim, Lieutenant Park said respectfully. Our colonies want to adapt your principles to their specific situations. What kind of situations? New California is primarily a logging and lumber operation, Park explained. But our harvesting equipment can also clear landing zones and create defensive barriers very quickly. Specialist Lee nodded. Titan Station focuses on asteroid mining and orbital manufacturing. Our industrial systems could easily be converted to produce defensive materials or modify civilian ships for patrol duties. Tejo smiled. This was exactly what he had hoped to see. Each colony was finding its own path to security while maintaining its civilian character and mission. Have you faced any actual threats yet? Small ones, Park admitted. Pirates have been testing our outer sensor networks. But when they detected our modified logging mechs moving through the forests, they decided to find easier targets elsewhere. Good. Remember, the goal is not to fight battles, but to convince potential enemies that attacking you would be too costly and difficult. Engineer Dong Wu appeared with his apprentice Myung Soo, both carrying data tablets filled with technical specifications. Governor, we just completed the quarterly colony survey, Dong Wu reported. 412 human settlements have implemented some form of dual-purpose defensive systems. Another 67 are in the planning stages. The numbers were impressive, but Tejo was more interested in the quality of the implementations. Any problems or failures? A few colonies tried to copy our exact systems without understanding the principles, Myung Soo explained, but most have developed creative solutions that fit their specific needs. Give me an example of creativity. Dong Wu grinned. The New Scotland colony turned their whiskey distilleries into chemical processing plants that can produce emergency medical supplies or defensive compounds. Their slogan is, good for drinking and good for fighting. Everyone laughed. That was definitely creative adaptation. Ji-Won's voice came over the communication system. Governor, priority message from the outer sensor network. Tejo's good mood evaporated instantly. Priority messages usually meant trouble. They hurried to the communication center where Ji-Won was studying multiple displays showing the edge of their star system. What do you have? Tejo asked. Unknown fleet approaching from the galactic south. Configuration suggests Caltharan raiders. The Caltharans were a predatory species that attacked isolated colonies throughout this region of space. They were not as technologically advanced as the hegemony, but they were ruthless and persistent. How many ships? 12 vessels. Mixed configuration, some warships, some transports. They are probably planning to raid our resources and capture civilians for slave labor. Captain Su-bin was already moving toward her control station. Time to intercept? 4 hours at current speed, Ji-Won replied. Any response to communication attempts? None. They are maintaining radio silence and approaching an attack formation. Tejo felt the familiar calm that came with facing a known problem. New Seoul had been preparing for exactly this situation for over a year. Alert status 2, he announced. Notify all department heads. Begin defensive preparations. Across the colony, hidden systems came online smoothly and quietly. Unlike the desperate improvisation of their first battle, this time everything moved according to well-practiced procedures. Dr. Yunji activated atmospheric modifications that had been refined and improved over the past year. Engineer Dong Wu brought orbital platforms to full readiness while maintaining their disguise as civilian infrastructure. Captain Su-bin coordinated mining drones that had been upgraded with better cutting tools and navigation systems. But the most important change was in the colonists themselves. Instead of panic, there was calm preparation. Parents made sure their children knew emergency procedures. Shopkeepers secured valuable goods and activated backup communication systems. Teachers turned their classrooms into coordination centers. Governor, Ambassador Teklar said quietly, my ship is armed and my crew is willing to assist in your defense. Thank you, Ambassador, but that will not be necessary. You are certain? 12 Caltharan ships represent a significant threat. Tejo looked around the command center. His people were working with quiet efficiency. preparing defenses that would be invisible to the attacking raiders until the moment they were needed. Ambassador, would you like to see how much we have improved since the hegemony attack? 3 hours later, the Caltharan fleet reached the edge of New Sol's defensive perimeter. Unlike Commodore Zethvar's arrogant ultimatum, the raiders attacked without warning, expecting to overwhelm the human colony with swift brutality. They discovered that New Sol colony was no longer the same target the hegemony had faced a year. The atmospheric defenses activated first, creating a particle screen that scattered the Caltharan energy weapons. But these were not Dr. Yunji's original modifications. A year of research had produced effects that were stronger, more precise, and completely invisible until activated. The mining drones attacked next, but they moved in coordinated swarms with tactics developed through months of training. Captain Subin had learned from every battle record available, creating formations that could destroy larger ships while minimizing the drone's exposure to enemy fire. The orbital platforms revealed capabilities that had not existed during the first battle. Engineer Dongwu had spent a year quietly upgrading every system, turning civilian satellites into sophisticated weapons platforms that could engage multiple targets simultaneously. The Caltharan fleet lasted 11 minutes. When the battle ended, 7 raider ships were completely disabled and drifting in space. 3 more were fleeing toward the outer system with their engines damaged and barely functional. 2 ships had been destroyed when their crews ignored surrender requests and continued attacking civilian areas. Casualties? Teho asked. None among our people, Jiwan reported. Some equipment damage, but nothing that cannot be repaired quickly. Enemy casualties? Minimal. Most Caltharan crews surrendered when they realized their situation was hopeless. Ambassador. Thekler stared at the tactical display in amazement. Governor, that was the most efficient defensive action I have ever witnessed. Your people barely seemed to be trying. We were not trying to impress anyone, Ambassador. We were protecting our home. The aftermath followed familiar patterns. Human rescue,